I'm Chris Sanchez, and welcome to Sonoma Views, where we talk real estate, property management, restaurant reviews, what's going on in Sonoma County, and everything in between. Today's topic is on property management, and thank you once again for being here. I really do appreciate it. Landlording, move-outs, moving out a tenant. Okay, I want to talk about the initial inspection or the pre-move-out inspection. They have two terms relatively meaning the same thing. This is when a tenant is going to be moving out of a rental unit, and there's two parts to this one. It's the pre-move-out inspection before the tenant actually moves out. So in a situation, a circumstance when the tenant has given you, the landlord, a notice that they're moving out, 30-day notice, you would do a pre-move out inspection before they actually do move out. And the same goes for the times when you give the tenant a notice to move out. Either you're not renewing the lease or you're giving them a 30, 60, 90-day notice to move out, whatever the situation may be. A word of caution, word of advice to bring to your attention. Oh, sorry, got an itch there. The tenants have a right to request an initial inspection of their rental unit before they move out. I'll repeat that. Tenants have a right to an initial inspection, which is the pre-move out inspection, before they actually move out of their rental unit. The purpose of that inspection is for the landlord to walk through, so you could go through the property and identify the items for potential deductions from the security deposit. Okay, so it's all about the security deposit refund process, the procedure. There's a civil code procedure on how to handle security deposits, how to handle the move out, the disposition. So the pre-move out inspection or initial inspection is to give the tenant the opportunity to make the corrections before they move out for those items that you see that you would be deducting from their security deposit: cleaning, repairs, etc. Okay, so there's an actual form in writing where it's the landlord's responsibility to give the tenant the notice of their right to an initial inspection. Then it's the tenant's responsibility to request it. You know, it's one of their legal rights. They're entitled to a pre-move out inspection, and so they request it, or they could deny it. They could actually decline their pre-move out inspection, and the best way to do it is on a form signed and dated on an actual paper. So if they decline it, that's on them, as long as you, the landlord, have advised them or notified them of their right, their legal right to that pre-move out inspection, given them the option. There's three options for the tenant. Tenant could request an initial inspection of the rental unit, request an initial inspection of the rental unit, but wish to be present. Big difference there. The tenant has a right to be present during that inspection. Or the third option, the tenant could simply decline the initial inspection, basically waiving their right. They have the right to it, but they waive the right to be there. And that should be done in writing, signed and dated, so you have it. Now, the whole purpose of that is to prevent disputes, always money disputes, on the security deposit, on the closing of the account, when the tenants finally do move out. So I'll touch on that. It should be done within 2 weeks of the time that the tenant is supposed to be moving out. We're in April, so we use simple dates, simple numbers. They give you notice, 30-day notice. Tenants are supposed to be out by April 30th. So it is the technical part. It's within 14 days. Within 14 days of the move-out date, up to 48 hours before the move-out date. So it gets kind of confusing. So no sooner than 14 days. So if if they give you a 30-day notice, it should be done maybe the 15th, the 16th, the 17th. So within 2 weeks of the actual move-in date, leading up to 48 hours, 48 hours before they actually move out. So if the tenants are supposed to be out on the 30th, don't schedule it for the 29th. Trust me. You're not doing yourself as a landlord a favor on that one. And the key reason is it does not give the tenant a reasonable amount of time to correct those things that you've identified. Okay, if you cut it close, you should give them at least 48 hours. Give them the opportunity to correct, to clean, take out the trash, or correct those items that you're going to be dinging them for from their security deposit. I like to do them. I just did one this morning, which is the reason for this call. Or I'm sorry, not this call, this video that I'm shooting. I did a pre-move out inspection this morning. It's a small 1-bedroom, 1-bath, so in and out. It doesn't have a yard. It was very simple. And what I identified was, I'll give you a live example. I always go through a rundown. Remove all personal items. Okay, personal items, furniture, bed. Remove all trash and debris from the rental unit. Clean the unit back to the same level of cleanliness of when they moved in. Cannot expect anything more than that. And this is why a move-in inspection is so critical, in photos and inspection documentation and everything. So cleanliness. And in this particular case, all my leases professionally steam clean the carpets, and that was a point of discussion. He wasn't happy about it. We always professionally clean the carpets, unless they're new. Professionally clean the carpets before the tenant moves in. We pay a vendor for that. Our lease agreement with my company, it is written that the tenant must professionally, keyword, clean the carpet, steam clean the carpets upon vacating the premises. All right. So he asked me about that. I said, yes, I wrote it. It's in the agreement. I know for a fact. Okay. So that's not tenants are always going to take the cheap way out. They're going to save money if they can. Naturally, they want to go rent a machine from Safeway and do it themselves. Do a rug doctor. No. If we paid, $200-300 to professionally clean the carpets before they move in, and they've lived there for a couple years, they're not getting away with getting a cheap rug doctor or their cousin Larry. Okay, and they must provide a receipt as proof that it was done by a professional carpet cleaning company. So those are the top ones. Removal of all personal items, removal of all trash and debris, clean the interior of the unit back to the same level of cleanliness at the time of move-in, professionally steam clean the carpets on the way out. On this one, I hit him for just a couple of other items. Replacing the burnout light bulbs. So some of the fixtures had light bulbs. That's an easy one. The place was kept in good shape. There were no visible, again, there's still furniture in here. It's only a pre-move out inspection. I couldn't see under the bed. I can't see behind the sofa, but most of the area was visible and nothing stood out as being obvious, deliberate damages, negligence. Most of my move outs are very clean, so I'm very thankful for that. But I'm looking through, it's like, all right, there's no holes in the wall. They didn't punch holes in the wall. The place is not trashed. Yeah, good clean condition. So I got them for light bulbs. I did notice, I always check in the door jamb, so this is might be a little tip for you landlords going through. When I move in tenants, I actually look at the door jambs and I photograph them where the strike plate, so when you have the doorknob and that little thing goes in, and that's what secures the bedroom doors, strike plate and the door jamb, I take photos of that because sometimes people are going to force entry and they're going to break a door, they're going to slam things shut, they're going to crack the trim, the actual door jamb, or missing strike plate. In this case, it was. So now what I have to do is go back to my move-in photos and compare just to see if that was there or not. And if not, then I pointed that out already. We have to make that repair, give them an estimate. Now, so I went through these items, gave them the list of recommended vendors who we would use, or we will use if the tenant doesn't do it. And most often it's the same vendors who we used before these tenants move in, because we're using the same routine vendors in the turnover. So during the vacancies, I have my carpet cleaner, I got the house cleaner. But what I do with the tenants, I give them a list of 2 different vendors who we could call. So we're not imposing, we're not forcing them to use any particular vendor, but they are vendors who we would use. And then I give them, here's 2 house cleaners who we trust and recommend. I know that they're going to do a good job to our level of satisfaction. And more than likely, they were the same people who cleaned the unit before you moved in, the tenant moved in. And then I also give them a couple carpet cleaning companies so that they have an option and they could compare prices and, you know, figure it out. But if they use one of those 2 vendors, it's in both of our interests because we know it's going to be done properly. If they go, I'm going to beat on the big commercial guys sometimes, like Stanley Steamer in the past is, they're less expensive, but they don't do as thorough of a cleaning as the smaller guys. That has been my experience. Somebody else may have a different experience. So, but if they get Stanley Steamer, one of the big corporate guys, and as long as they have a paid receipt that it was done, it was professionally cleaned, not a problem. I'm not going to deduct. So it's in all fairness. So the underlying theme here is giving the tenant, notifying them of their right to request a pre-move out inspection, actually doing that inspection, identifying the areas that would be corrections or fixed damages. I didn't touch on this, but the most common one is sometimes, okay, you got to fill the nail holes, or if there were screws in here, fill them and touch up paint. Window screens, missing blinds, smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms. These are the most common things that we have to put in. Tenants remove smoke alarms. They're annoying, so they remove them. They damage the screens. The mini blinds are missing, or they're bent. The cord is cut off. Your common turnover items. So I just go through those. If there's an actual hole in the wall and it was a straight damage, then yes. The key is giving the tenant a reasonable amount of time to make that correction on their own. If they do not do it, then we will do it after they move out, or a contractor. But not only give them a reasonable amount of time to do it, give them an estimate of the cost that it would take to replace that. Okay. Now you're not going to know for sure unless you're there with the contractor at the time of doing that, but have a reasonable estimate what you think it might cost. And then later down the road, after the tenant moves out, then you could get the actual work done, get the actual invoice, have copies of actual payment, and then you could give the tenant back the difference. So if I say, hey, filling this hole, it's going to be $300, you know, time and material, and the handyman or contractor comes in and it was only $200. Well, great. I owe the tenant $100. All right. So it's about giving them a good faith estimate and reasonable amount of time for them to correct it themselves. If they choose not to, or they decline, or want us to hire our own vendors, we're happy to do it. Or you, the landlord, would do it after the fact. I think that's it. I covered a lot. We're at 13 minutes. I'm Chris Sanchez. This is Sonoma Views. I hope you're receiving benefit and value from these videos. You can find the YouTube channel by going directly to that web address, sonomaviews.com. Thanks for watching.